I want to have an inconvenient conversation. And let's face it, no one likes an inconvenient conversation. It's awkward, uncomfortable, maybe even makes us squirm in our seats. But here's what I know for sure. The conversations we avoid are the ones that often we most need to have. And so today, I want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But not in the way you're used to hearing it. I don't want to talk about race or gender or even who we love. Instead, I want to talk about a piece of the DEI puzzle that we often leave completely out of the conversation, and that's accessibility for persons with disabilities. Now, this has been a largely invisible population, if you will, and despite the fact that the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law back in 1990, some reason we're still not including them in our DEI talks. Can you believe it's been 35 years since the ADA was signed? 35 years. And so now, with its 35th anniversary coming up on July 26, 2025, feels like the right time to me to take a step back and kind of assess, how far have we really come? Because in 1990, this was a huge deal, a game changer, and a promise that persons with disabilities would no longer be left out of the conversation, would no longer be pushed aside, ignored, or even made to feel less than. So now we have to ask the uncomfortable question: how far have we come? Sure, we've got ramps here, we've got captions there, but if you were to ask someone who is living with disabilities, what do you think they would say about the level of access they have to some of the things that we tend to enjoy and don't think twice about it? What would they say about how far we've come? Are we including them in conversations around innovation, product development, scientific research? Do they still have trouble with access to employment, transportation, and get this one, even getting into their own homes? Here are some shocking statistics. Less than 5% of homes in the United States are accessible. And when it comes to jobs, a 2023 report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that people with disabilities are half as likely to have employment as those who don't have disabilities. In fact, 70% of persons with disabilities are either unemployed or underemployed. Persons in that population who have a bachelor's degree or higher, still only 31% are gainfully employed. Now, in the workplace, we've seen a lot of accommodations. Women who are nursing have lactation rooms. Caregivers have services as well. And most employees enjoy a robust employee assistance program. But what about persons with disabilities? Unfortunately, what we've seen is a lot of companies do just the bare minimum in order to comply with the law. Let me show you what I mean. Have you ever seen automatic doors, elevators, and even a fancy chairlift in some places? They're on site, but they're out of order or not working. What this means is there's a clear example of people who are checking off those boxes to say I'm in compliance by providing this accommodation, but I'm failing to embrace the full spirit of the law with maintenance and upkeep. The legendary Brian Stevenson, attorney, advocate, and activist, says it best: our humanity depends on everyone's humanity. Our progress as a society is not based on how we treat the privileged. It's based on how we treat those who are marginalized and the most vulnerable. And so when we think about persons with disabilities, we have to remember advocating for that excluded person is advocating for all of us. When we think of persons with disabilities, we still have to be sure as well to not think of just physical barriers. There are systemic ones as well. The lack of a reasonable accommodation, this is a term that the ADA uses to describe the adjustments that we make for persons who have disabilities so that they can perform a job or operate in society well. Having a lack of a reasonable accommodation means that some people will never have the opportunity to reach their full potential. Perhaps there's a person who is extremely qualified for a job, but don't have access to the items or the adjustments or the accommodations that would allow them to do it well. Perhaps it's a company who refuses to make accessibility a priority, and so they don't hire persons with mobility issues. Or perhaps also the reasonable accommodations of flexibility are not allowed, and so a person who has neurodivergent issues or challenges can't work there successfully either. These are things that we should all be thinking about. And I've seen it firsthand in my work as a certified advocate, activist, and practitioner. When we allow just even the minimum accommodation, just a small one, we'll find that persons with disabilities will rise to the occasion, more often than not. What we need to know for sure is when we fail to provide inclusive environments, when we fail to embrace them, we lock the door on both potential and possibility. Oh, but when we embrace inclusivity, we unlock the door to diversity, not just in background, but in talent, skills, abilities, new thoughts, and new perspectives. And I've seen it with people like Sarah. Sarah had a neurological condition that didn't allow her to process information the way that most others do. And so in a regular environment, she struggled. But with just a few adjustments, a flexible work schedule, a supportive supervisor, and assistive technology, she didn't just survive. Sarah thrived. Her insights really transformed the department. And that particular company, well, they gained a brilliant team member. And then there's also the case of Maria. Maria was a college student. Maria self-identified as having hearing impairment. She transferred to a larger university, and something about being in that large lecture hall made her feel disconnected. But Maria's professor went above and beyond. She gave captioning, real-time captioning of the class's lecture. And then she also provided videos of the class lecture for review. But she didn't stop there. That professor went on to allow students a variety of formats for how they would submit their assignments and work that was due. She allowed, of course, written format if you needed that, but also videos and interactive online presentations and even podcasts. In this environment, Maria thrived. She became empowered, and before long, the school saw her leading talks and educative moments around environmental issues that the class was studying. But guess what else? That wasn't the only thing that happened that was great for this particular class. Because of that professor's efforts, everyone did astronomically well. Students were able to operate in a variety of ways they had never done before, and they began to see strengths in themselves that they never envisioned having. And so by the end of the semester, it was very clear that this was an entire community that thrived because of accommodations that benefit us all. Now, there are other innovations that are out there that were intended for persons with disabilities that we all enjoy, that benefit us all. Take text messaging, for instance. When was the last time you sent a text message? Oh, wait, are any of you texting right now? Right. Well, did you know texting wasn't created for most of us? Texting was created for persons who are deaf or voice challenged to allow them another way to communicate. But we've taken it for ourselves, haven't we? We've appropriated it. We can't even imagine life without texting. An innovation with accessibility in mind that benefits us all. What about elevators? Same thing, right? They're ours, right? No, it was for folks in wheelchairs. But again, I don't know about you guys, I may or may not go out of my way to find an elevator rather than even taking just one flight of stairs. It benefits us all. And then my personal favorite, electric toothbrushes. Handy dandy little things, aren't they? Especially mine tells me how well I brush, like all this stuff, right? Again, not made for me, made for someone with a mobility issue who has trouble using their hands to brush their teeth. When we create innovations with accessibility in mind, it benefits each and every one of us. As we approach the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, I really want to think about inclusion and all of us, each of us, embracing the full spirit of the law. Maria, who I talked about earlier, the college student, her professor could have stopped at just captioning and would have been in compliance. But instead, she went above and beyond to embrace the full spirit of the law. And this is going to be very important, especially as we think about persons with disabilities, but also aging populations who are going to be in need of additional housing, resources, services, and transportation. As Brian Stevenson said, our humanity depends on everyone's humanity. Thank you.